Hey there, and welcome to the Reclamation Room. I'm Ashana, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a space for women reclaiming themselves after narcissistic abuse. If you've ever felt like you were too much, not enough, or both at the same time, you're in the right place. I created this podcast because I know what it's like to lose yourself in overgiving, overperforming, and still wondering why it never felt like love. I've walked through trauma, toxic relationships, and the long road of self-reclamation, and I'm here to walk with you. In this podcast, we'll explore what it means to come home to yourself after the confusion and chaos of narcissistic abuse. Some episodes will be solo, others will include guest interviews. All of them will be honest, grounded, and deeply compassionate. So, whether you're just realizing what you've lived through, or you've been on this path and you're ready for the next layer of your healing, you are welcome here. This is not about perfection. This is about reclamation.
You can see shame has been weaponized, and it's a useful means of control. This isn't about blaming anyone or labeling anyone as a narcissist. My perspective is to reclaim your power from shame. So we kind of need to unhook from the matrix of this. My platform is called Trauma Matrix because this is the real matrix that we're in. It's not AI. It's our own trauma. And the gasoline that keeps that trauma going down through the generations is shame. Without it has no fuel. And then you have like the other foot soldiers that keep the shame going, like scarcity and hustle culture and all of these things. But when you take away the shame, you really reclaim so much power, so much more agency. You find out who you are. When you're carrying lots of shame, you can't know who you are because your whole identity is being repressed. I haven't been on any podcast specifically about narcissism, and I think that's really brilliant. I'm really happy to be here because I have, well, you know what I talk about. I talk about how we've internalized the narcissist, and I think it's very true. I think everyone's done that to some degree, particularly in Western society, even if they haven't experienced narcissistic abuse, because the culture is so narcissistic. And I don't know if you've looked at my Substack, but I've kind of mapped out how it's quite fractal, how we internalize it and it fractals out over all our society. Because you see the same kind of mapping, the scapegoat, the enabler, and the narcissist in governments.
Yeah.
It's absolutely everywhere.
Okay, so no, I have not looked at your Substack yet, but I'm gonna follow you on Substack. I'm excited.
Yeah, so that's what I talk about, how it's systemic, and that really helped me when I realized that I'd been scapegoat of my family because you feel so personally attacked. But then when you realize that it's systemic, it's not a cure-all,
Yeah.
but you feel a little bit less, it's less personal. It's not about you. The system is fucked. And my family, I had no idea how fucked up they were, but I could talk about that. I thought I was the fucking problem because my mom is not an obvious narcissist, and I thought my family was normal and that I was the problem.
So let's talk about that a little bit because I
Yeah.
know everyone's experience is different. Of course, we have nuances, we have our individual family units. What kinds of things caused you to feel like you were the problem, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, sure. I just had very low self-esteem. I had was very full of shame, which was the fundamental problem. So I had all these beliefs that I'm stupid, I'm ugly, there's something wrong with me, I'm a failure from a very young age. So I was from a child, I was kind of wanted to die and stuff. I thought that was normal. But this is very typical for scapegoats because you internalize that because it can't be your parents' problem. It has to be you, and that's what I did. And I think victims of narcissistic abuse, partners, they do the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've had many conversations with people who seem to have been the scapegoat, and every single one of us say the same thing. I just spoke with someone last night, and she said she felt like there was a rotten apple inside of her when she was, I think she said like 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And then you become like the basic landfill for the family's unprocessed trauma and all of the unprocessed shame. Because I mean, I could talk a lot about shame because shame is the root cause of narcissism, the
yep.
major driver.
Yeah.
So, And we're told in our society that shame is good for you. We can talk about that. Shame is healthy. You need a certain amount of shame to be a good girl or a good boy. And that message is absolutely everywhere, particularly strong in the English language.
Yeah. So let's dig into that a little bit then, if you want to
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
segue into shame. You said
Yeah.
especially in the English language. In what way?
Well, the English language is very explicit about it because we have terms like shameless. You have no shame. And when you call someone shameless or say that you have no shame, that's a slur. That doesn't
Hmm.
mean that you actually have no shame. 99.99 times out of 100, when someone is shameless or you're calling them you have no shame, you're saying that because you're triggered by them. They're doing something that's making you feel uncomfortable. They're not actually free of shame. So shame is always a mechanism of control and manipulation every single time. And we're gaslit to believe that it's good for you. Even people like Brene Brown, who speaks a lot about shame, she says that if you don't experience shame, then you would be a psychopath. I think that's absolutely false. And even people like John
Wow.
Bradshaw, he talks about how there's a thing, this is the consensus in the psychological community that there's such a thing as healthy shame. And I think that's complete BS. Shame has no healthy form. It's always super toxic. Shame is basically self-attack, self-loathing. It's not a normal emotion. It's the
Yep.
only emotion that's really identity level, and that's basically self-erasure. And it's not even one thing. It's shame. It's not even the belief that I'm bad or I'm
Hmm.
defective.
Hmm.
It's a toxic cocktail of a bunch of different feelings like self-loathing and self-disgust, anger turned inward, sadness turned against the self, bunch of things.
Yep.
And those feelings that I'm defective, I'm bad, I'm a failure, all come downstream from that. So to even say shame is I'm bad is an oversimplification of what it is.
Yep.
And we're told by society that shame is good for you, that you need shame in order to be a good person. So that's where you're shameless. You have no shame. Every other word in the English language that ends in less means you're absolutely homeless, hopeless. You have none of that. But shameless is different because most people, when we call them shameless, they're 9 times out of 10, they're actually operating out of repressed shame. People who get drunk and take all their
Yep.
clothes off and something, that's repressed shame. And this is why people drink. Shame is the major driver for addiction. I was on a podcast about bulimia. This again,
Yeah.
shame is the root cause.
Yep.
And nobody is addressing it. We're
Yep.
taught that self-sabotage, procrastination, all these things, we're dealing with them as if they're the problem, but these are symptoms of shame. Shame is the root cause. So we're playing whack-a-mole with a bunch of symptoms rather than dealing with the root, which is shame. And this is because shame is a dirty word. No one wants to admit they have shame. I was talking to a woman and she's saying, "Oh, I have imposter syndrome. I don't think shame is my problem." But shame is the cause, it's the driver, it's the root cause of imposter syndrome. But nobody wants to admit it because shame is kind of dirty, it's kind of disgusting. There's a big taboo about it. There's the kind of, ooh, shame. There's a real ick about shame. Nobody wants to admit they have it because it means exclusion from the society. You get cast away. So there's an avoidance of shame. And the thing is, we can't release what we don't recognize. And there's a major avoidance. People don't want to talk about shame. And we need to talk about shame because we need to release it. And while we're avoiding it, that's not going to happen. And shame, it's how people manipulate. It's how narcissists manipulate people. They utilize shame and they're operating from repressed shame. That's the major driver of narcissism. Psychopaths don't have shame. Yeah, that's true. But what's really missing, it's not the problem that they don't have shame. What they're missing is empathy, not shame. And shame actually, physiologically, it shuts down our ability to empathize. So when we say you have no shame, it's shame is we it's not shame is not the problem there. A lack of shame is empathy. We need more empathy. And like I said, when we feel shame, we internalize, we build ourselves a shell,
Yeah.
we're more inclined to attack. It's actually a very, very poor indicator for changing behavior. When we feel shamed, we're less likely to change our behavior, not more. Guilt is useful, shame is totally useful, but still we're gaslit constantly by our society and culture that shame is somehow useful. You know, you have no shame or you're too much shame, you're shameful. So you need just the right amount of shame in order to be a good person. And this is because shame has become so normalized in our society.
Yeah.
Especially in Western culture, which is very narcissistic. Shame, basically, the only use of shame is to keep people in their little box and keep people small. That's the only function of shame, and that's not good for us as individuals. But we're told that we need it, and it's absolutely everywhere. We also in the West we have a particular kind of shade of shame that I feel is very, very toxic. This is an individualized form of shame. Shame in kind of in tribal societies before, you know, we had the colonization and the religion and everything, there was a kind of tribal sense of shame, which was basically honor, a family honor. If you step outside of that, then you're shamed for bringing dishonor to the family. So again, it's about regulating people, but it's kind of still about your behavior. It's very toxic still. This is why there are so many suicides in Japan, because they have that real kind of shame. And it's what I call collectivist shame, because it's kind of, you're not bad for being you. But then we come to the West, and this was really popularized and spread by the Catholic religion and by Christianity. And this is even more toxic, in my opinion, and more corrosive than the other form of shame, because that form of shame says, I'm a sinner, I'm bad because I'm me. It's not because of behavior of bringing dishonor onto anyone. I'm just a bad apple. Something is wrong with me. And there's nothing I can do to change that. At least with the collectivist type of shame, potentially you can remedy that. But with this, and this comes from the Christian ideology that says you're a sinner and you have to forgive. Now, if you just think about that for a second, that's a massive double bind that no matter what you do, you can never get out of. You're a sinner and you have to forgive. Like, hello? You are stuck there for life. So this is it's been weaponized by the Catholic Church. It's not something that Jesus taught, but it's something that was weaponized by the church later because again, shame is such a useful mechanism of control and it looks very impressive in the moment. If there's a child here who's bothering me and I shame him, to keep him quiet. I might tell myself I'm doing that for his own good, you know, but really that's a lie. It's always about the comfort of the shamer. It's shame is never, it's always centering the shamer's needs above everyone else every single time. And we all use shame. We shame people on social media. And it's always about the comfort of the shamer. And it's very ineffective to change people's behavior. I mean, you see in cults and things, or people feel attacked when they experience shame. They tend to close up, they become less, and they become violent as well because they feel like shame puts us into survival mode. Basically, that's what shame does, like no other emotion. Fear doesn't do that in the same way. Shame
Yeah.
is like a full-on hijack of the body and the nervous system, and it's so toxic. It's effective at changing our behavior in the moment and it looks very impressive, but it leaves a super toxic trace and it's never beneficial for the person being shamed. Not it never. But we all use it, parents use it, we all use it. It's kind of automatic now because it's been so normalized, particularly in Western society, like I said.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, gosh, okay, listening to you right now, I'm like, this is amazing. I'm glad that we found one another because everything that you've said, I'm nodding and I'm like, yes, people need to hear this. But also, you say it in a way that I think people can understand. And I don't think they're going to feel shamed listening to you. I don't think it's going to cause, well, I hope it's not going to cause people to be like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this. I'm awful. Let me just breed more shame in the world. I think the way that you're approaching this is here's why this isn't effective. And then I think it would be awesome if we could talk a little bit about how we internalize the narcissist, which
Yeah,
as you were speaking, there were so many things that I was like, yes, this is such a good point. Like, let's dig into this
it
more.
is. We do
Um,
internalize the narcissist, and
yeah.
this is the real freedom. We don't need to we don't need to stop the narcissist. Once we unhook ourselves from the narcissist that we internalize, we become unhookable, we become unshameable. I call it reclaiming your shameless. This is the name of my group program. So because this shameless word, we need to take it back.
Yeah.
Shameless, we want to become shameless and take it back from being the slur that it
Yeah.
has become in the English language particularly. And we want to become free of shame because the more we exercise this thing, which is
Mhm.
basically a parasite that we internalize it. It does, I'm telling you, it does everything that a narcissist does. But
Mhm.
again,
Mhm.
we're gaslit by psychology. We're told to treat this thing as a wounded part and to send it love and
Oh
take
my
it to
gosh,
therapy.
yes. Like stop pathologizing everything. Like, do you like,
Yeah.
is that how you feel also? Like not everything requires like a diagnosis and like medicate this portion and cut this piece of you out?
Well, I have a slightly different approach. This, what's called the inner critic, when we're taught to believe, self-sabotage and all of these things, perfectionism, all of these things, that it's trying to
Mm-hmm.
protect you, that it's trying to
Mm-hmm.
look after you. That's the conventional wisdom, right?
Okay.
But if you look at it does not care about you. It's a narcissist, right? So again, it doesn't care about you. It cares about itself. It's trying to protect itself. It doesn't care about you. Wants you to stay small. It's not protecting you. And once we're told that this thing is trying to protect us, that it's a wounded child, that we need to send it love, it doesn't work. Imagine doing that with a narcissist out there in the world, taking it to therapy, sending them love. It doesn't work. It does everything that a narcissist does. It manipulates, it shames you, it triangulates. Look at you and look at that person. They're doing so well. You're such a failure. It's grandiose. It ticks every box of the narcissist, except the call is coming from inside the house. So we've got to stop treating this, it's a parasite. It's like a light bulb that's extracting all its energy from you to manipulate you. And once you cut off the power, it's got nothing, just like the narcissist out there in the world. And like I said, the narcissist out there, like the partner, the physical narcissist out there that are trying to hook you in, they need for you to have this inner voice that agrees with it in order for you to experience shame. So if I say to you, Ashana, you've got a big nose, you're so ugly, in order for you to experience shame, you need to have that voice inside that says, oh my God, yeah, I've got a big
Maybe I
nose.
do
I'm
have a
so
big,
ugly. Yeah. Oh
yeah.
my God. That's the only way that you experience shame there. Otherwise, you'll be like,
Gosh.
this woman is crazy.
Like,
That
what's your problem?
return to sender, you don't take it in. So, in order for us to experience shame, shame is an inside job. So, the more we unhook ourselves from this internal narcissist, the more we exercise this parasite, the more we become unshameable. And no one can shame us. If somebody tries to tell us something that you've got a big nose or that you're ugly or you're fat or you've got wrinkles, you'll just be like, return to sender. That is your shame because shame is always, always a projection. Shame is
Yeah.
not an emotion that we can digest. And this is
Yep.
why I have such a problem that with people and therapists and healers that say, sit down with your shame, feel your shame. This is very dangerous
Oh,
because
no.
yeah, people say that. People like Teal Swan, she says, sit with your shame, feel your shame. It's very, very
No.
dangerous to do that because
Yeah.
shame, it's not a normal emotion. It's not like anger. Anger has a positive use. Somebody's
Yep.
crossing my boundaries, I need to say no, right?
Yeah.
Fear has a positive use.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it can go toxic as well, but it has a positive use. There's a car that's going to knock me down. I get scared. I run in the opposite direction. I get off the road, right? Fear is
Yeah.
useful. Shame has no such positive use. The only use that it has is to keep you small and
Yep.
manipulatable.
Yep.
That's the only use it has to keep you in your little box. The more we free ourselves of this shame voice, this inner narcissist, as I call it, we become nobody can shame us. Anyone who tries to shame us will just recognize it as a projection and return it back to sender. And I was talking to someone on another podcast a few weeks ago, and they were talking about when their aunt was a child, they were out eating ice cream and they were a little bit pudgy. And this guy, this adult, comes up to them and says, you shouldn't eat that ice cream, you'll get fat. And these girls, think about it, they could have felt so much shame and gone thrown away their ice cream. You know what they did? They laughed in his face and kept on eating their ice cream. So this just shows you shame is an inside job. If somebody tries to shame you, you don't have to take it in. Once you don't have that little hook, the inner narcissist, the voice that agrees, Nobody can shame you without your consent or without this little hook in your head that says, yeah, you are fat, or it'll make you fat, or whatever the slur or the insult is.
Hmm.
It's again, it's always a manipulation. That guy was trying to make these kids. It was a projection. And
Yep.
shame is always a projection, because shame, we either internalize it against the self or we project it out at the other because we can't process it. It's not a normal emotion at all. And
Yeah. I like to
wait,
say that, like, oh, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was just like, I like to explain it, especially like to my kiddos, because as parents, we want them to be able to recognize things like this and be like, nope, that's not going to work on me. So I want to ask you another question in a minute, but
Hmm.
I tell them, like, if you're feeling guilty about something, honey, like that's like an internal compass for you, possibly. Like, lean into that. And does it cause you to want to do something? Do you want to go make it better with your friend? Do you want to apologize? Do you want to talk about it more? Like, but we've found together that when it's shame, they don't want to do anything. They just like they're
Exactly.
hopeless in the situation. And it's like, then
Yeah,
you probably shouldn't be listening to that voice because then you can't do
100%.
anything about it.
Exactly. And that's what shame does. It makes you small, it makes you disappear, it puts you into survival mode. So, like I said before, you're less inclined to change your behavior. And there have been
Yeah.
studies about that. But still, we're told that shame is some kind of moral compass. That's the
That's
way it,
crazy. I never thought of it that way until listening to you. Like, of course, you see like parenting and like the cancel culture and people wanting you to buy things, that totally makes sense. But when you're saying like shame has been glorified here,
yeah.
holy shit.
Well, even when you have Brene Brown saying that if you don't experience shame, that would make you a psychopath, I think that really says it all.
Never heard her say that. Like I don't listen to her, so like I'm shocked to hear this.
She says that in her TED.
She's so viral. That's
And she's
scary.
again, she's talking from inside the shame cage, which is where most people are.
Yeah.
Even people like John Bradshaw, if you're familiar with him, book called
Yeah.
The Shame That Binds
Yeah.
You. He got very close to it. He talked about toxic shame and how it's the root of addictions and so much bad. And I think all kind of pretty much all mental illness. I'm not going to say all because someone will
Right.
find one that doesn't, but pretty much all of the mental illnesses, you can find shame in there somewhere. And shame is an essential substrate for things like genocide.
Mhm.
Without shame, and you look at the groups that are currently and previously have committed genocide, they were often the scapegoats, so they're carrying all this internalized shame. And
Yeah.
then when they get to their place of power, what do? They project it onto another collective so they don't have to deal with that. And you see that happening in a lot of Western countries at the moment. All our collective shame from the years of genocide and all of the stuff that we've done as a culture, like white people are the
Mhm.
golden children in many cultures, they're the special ones when we're talking about family systems, which I can explain more in detail if you want. But you have the golden child, these are kind of the special one in the family. Then you have the scapegoat and the enabler, and you have a few other roles. But this actually fractals out. You see this exact same pattern in corporations, you see it in governments, you see it in the whole system. And the operating system for this dysfunction is shame. Without shame, trauma doesn't get passed down. What is family trauma? It's mostly shame, to be honest. So when you cut off the shame, when you take back your power from shame, you cut off the power of this thing, and you can't be manipulated anymore. And this is how you truly take back your power and your agency. Most people that talking about shame and talking about the so-called inner critic are teaching people how to feel better with shame. So they're like decorating the
Mhm.
cage of shame. Oh, let's put a few
Mhm.
nice crystals here and make it look nice inside the cage, rather than opening the door and stepping outside. Because, like I said, shame has been so normalized. John Bradshaw said that you need shame in order to be humble, to know you're not God. Brene Brown says that you need shame, not if you don't have shame, then you're a psychopath. So again, shame is a moral compass, shame as something that teaches you humility, but that's not shame that teaches you that, that's humility. Those are different things. Guilt is a useful way to regulate your behavior. What we need is empathy. That's the
Yeah.
real key. And shame, physiologically, like I said before, it shuts down our ability to empathize. There have
Yes.
been studies done. When you experience shame, you have less empathy for others and less empathy for yourself, because it's all
Yeah.
about survival mode. You go into a little shell and
Yeah.
you
It's like
go
tunnel
hard against
vision.
yourself. Yeah, exactly.
This is
So the
fascinating. I haven't heard people explain it in this way. Like, I agree with you. And when you're saying, like, there are people who say you need shame for X, Y, and Z, I'm like, they're saying what to people? Like,
that's the conventional wisdom. I was talking to someone through my Substack, and he was told by his therapist that it's good that he experienced shame because he's done bad things to himself and others. So just to put it out there that this is the party line. This is the conventional wisdom in psychology, that shame is a moral compass. That, and if you look at our language again, shame
yeah.
is good for you. You need a certain amount of shame to be well behaved, be a good person.
I don't know if you've ever experienced these moments, but like everything that you're saying, I'm like, yeah, like I believe this too. And yet I've been living in this world that now you're putting in towards. It's almost like when you realize you've been in a narcissistic household and you come out of it and someone puts words to what you've been experiencing the whole time. You just did that for me with the world and shame
Yeah.
because
Well,
it
hmm
makes sense.
well, it is a narcissistic world.
Yeah.
Everything is narcissistic. This is how the world operates. So even if you weren't brought up in a narcissistic household, the whole world, especially the Western world, capitalism, it's driven by narcissism, and shame is the currency for that. Without shame, people cannot be manipulated. And this is
Yeah.
why it's been weaponized to such a degree, and we've been gaslit into believing that shame is good for you.
Okay, so this might be a hard-hitting question. I actually have two questions. We'll start with this one though. What would you say to, because there's like camps of people, right? And in starting a podcast that does focus on narcissistic abuse, I've shared my story. I've shared what I went through. I've had family members, court members, like people try to silence me. And I'm like, that's okay. Like I know what happened to me and I know other people are going through similar things. So I didn't really want to use that word in this podcast, but I knew that it would resonate with people and I knew that it would reach the right people. So here we are. We're on a podcast that does talk about narcissistic abuse. There's camps of people per se, and some have even said to me, it's extremely unhealthy that you people view the world as in everyone is a narcissist or everyone is out to get you, or after what you've been through, you're viewing everything through a trauma lens. Not everything is narcissistic just because they don't agree with you. And I agree that not everything is narcissism. I agree. But when you've been through it and you learn to spot it, there are certain things that you realize, like, I'm not going to allow that anymore. That's extremely unhealthy. So I'm wondering if you can speak to that as if someone was listening to this episode and was like, Emma, you're insane. Not everything, like you're acting like the world is out to get you. Aren't you just, maybe you're just super traumatized and now you're projecting onto everyone. How would you field that question or that statement?
We live in a narcissistic culture. And all civilizations are narcissistic by design, because any kind of pyramidical culture, it requires shame in order to control people. So this kind of collectivist idea of shame, we need to keep people in line, we need to keep people in their spot. So we use shame in order to do that. This is where it was introduced. And that's a narcissistic culture. Then what we have through colonization, conquest, all of that, you had even in like the Americas, where you had the Aztecs and the Incas and all of that, they were narcissistic cultures too, but the Europeans kind of amped it up to the next level. And like now we've got capitalism, which is the ultimate kind of narcissistic Kool-Aid that we're all being taught to drink. And we live in a narcissistic culture. This isn't to this isn't to say everyone here is a narcissist, but narcissism is an epidemic at the moment, and that's not happening for nothing. That's happening because the culture is promoting it, and it's encouraged. We glorify narcissists. Look at the current president of the United States. That's a classic example, but not just him. You kind of need to be narcissistic in order to be a politician or to go for those kind of roles. So even the so-called nice governments, like the Irish government, for example, again, this is kind of covert narcissism. So it's much more discreet. They look much more nice, but again, they're narcissistic. This is systemic. This isn't about blaming anyone. This is just pattern recognition. you can see shame has been weaponized, and it's a useful means of control. This isn't about blaming anyone or labeling anyone as a narcissist. My perspective is to reclaim your power from shame. So we kind of need to unhook from the matrix of this. I mean, my platform is called Trauma Matrix because this is the real matrix that we're in. It's not AI. It's our own trauma. And the gasoline that keeps that trauma going down through the generations is shame. Without it has no fuel. And then you have like the other foot soldiers that keep the shame going, like scarcity and hustle culture and all of these things. But when you take away the shame, you really reclaim so much power, so much more agency. You find out who you are. When you're carrying lots of shame, you can't know who you are because your whole identity is being repressed. That again is by design to keep us small, to keep us out of our power. And like I said, that's something that's being put forward, not just by the government, but by the psychological community, by everyone, because shame is normalized and it's considered something that's everyone just experiences, that it's just something that's what we have as human. And I personally don't believe that. Cultures that were pre these empires, pre these kind of pyramidical structures that where you had like leaders and stuff, the more kind of nomadic ones, they didn't experience shame in the same way. This is a feature of culture. And again, it's about controlling people. We don't trust people to behave well, so we have to shame them to keep them in their spot. So definitely, we don't need shame. We need guilt. We need guilt in order to keep us in line. But shame is ineffective. But it just looks impressive in the moment. So this is why it's been weaponized.
Beautiful. Okay, so side note question just for myself. I'm going to research this after. Capitalism. What would you say is like an alternative that would be less narcissistic?
Yeah, capitalism is the kind of latest. It's not that it's new. This shame-based narcissistic culture has been around for generations, and like before
Yeah.
European colonialism that just
Yes.
spread it, and the empire. If you look at nomadic tribal kind of communities, they didn't have shame in the same way, even collectivist shame. And when therapists or psychologists talk about babies experiencing shame, I believe that's a projection. I don't believe we're born experiencing shame. I believe that's completely taught. And
Yeah, I mean, you have to
when
be
babies
shamed.
hide, yeah, when babies, hide their face, like researchers have said that that's shame because they believe that shame is innate. Yeah, there again, shame has been so normalized that we see it
Yeah.
everywhere. Back to Brene Brown, shame is so pervasive that we just think that it's part of what it is to be human. But this is
Yeah.
just it's a very Eurocentric idea and concept, that especially this individualized shame that is so corrosive that I'm bad, that I need to hide just because of who I am.
Yeah.
This is a European invention. So it's not
Interesting.
it did not exist before, the Christian idea spread this. You're bad. There's
Yeah.
something wrong with you. And again, it's a very effective way to keep people in line, to keep people small. But it's very bad for us as a civilization because it leads to what's happening. It
Mhm.
culminates in what we have with late stage capitalism now, which is it's only a matter of time before it crumbles in on its own kind of insanity. But the you asked about the alternative. The alternative is we need to become a society that no longer shames ourselves. So we as individuals can unhook ourselves from this shame, and then we become unshameable. But then we need to do it collectively, and that's a longer project because
Yeah.
shame is weaponized by the establishment. And but the cool thing is that when we free ourselves of our own shame voice, we can no longer be manipulated by the empire, if you like, by the
Mhm.
shame, by the trauma matrix, by the empire that utilizes shame to keep everyone in their box. So this is how it starts. It starts by people freeing themselves of their own internalized shame, their own internalized narcissist. And then from there, we need to create new systems where we trust each other, where we're operating on empathy rather than shame. And that's kind of the other end of the stick because shame, like I said, I've just made a visual, where, we're taught that you need shame in order to be a good
Mhm.
person. But like I said, shame, it actually inhibits our ability to feel empathy. And
Yeah.
this is what we need. This is the problem with psychopaths. It's not that they have no shame, it's that they have no empathy. That's why they're unshameable. But
Hmm.
it's not that they're free, they're lacking empathy. And this is what we need more of. We don't need more shame. We need no shame, and we need more empathy. So this is the culture we're operating on empathy and connection, where we have empathy for ourselves and other people, rather than where we're operating from this place where we're shaming each other, where we're shaming ourselves and shaming each other in order to feel a little bit less shame within ourselves. This is why women shame each other so much, because we
Hmm.
collectively have been scapegoated by the patriarchy,
Yeah.
the collective. So women have an extra dose of shame, even if you weren't scapegoated within your family. Collectively, women have been shamed for bodies, for sexuality, and again, that's a projection from men. And what do we do when we see a woman? We experience the shame. Oh, she's got a big ass, or she's got a big nose, or look at her wrinkles. And it alleviates the shame in the moment. And this is why we
Mhm.
do it.
It's like blame
We're
shifting. We've been conditioned to do that.
Exactly. We're projecting our shame on them. We feel a little bit better when we pull them down, and it takes the
Hmm.
awareness. Doesn't
Which
it
blame
doesn't
shifting, would you say that's just a way to take that shame out of yourself for a moment and force someone else to feel it? Would you
Yes,
say that?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a 100%, it's a projection. So we're
Okay.
projecting it on the person. And we get some temporary relief through that, but
Hmm.
it doesn't exercise the shame.
No.
It doesn't
Yeah.
free ourselves of shame.
It kind of
It
grows
makes us,
it.
yeah, because we feel powerful in that moment. We kind of get that narcissistic moment where we're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I can
Ooh,
manipulate this
yeah.
person. This feels good. I feel so powerful." So it gives us a hit of that. And that's what it
Okay.
really is. So we feel a bit of relief from our shame. This is why people drink and take
And
drugs.
we feel powerful in the moment, whereas before we had been feeling powerless.
Exactly.
That's
It gives
it.
us it gives us a false sense of power,
Yeah.
but it doesn't actually make us more powerful. It just gives us
No.
that sense of feeling powerful. We have power over other people. And this is how the narcissistic system spreads.
Yeah.
This is not a it's not a clear-cut thing, but
Mm-hmm.
the environment is a huge factor. Like my mother, who's a covert narcissist, her mother was an overt, a malignant narcissist, and
Hmm.
this is something that was kind of covered up by the family. They're like, oh, she wasn't so bad, she just had a bit of anxiety. So there's a lot of denial about how bad it was, because my mother and her sister, for example, were kind of enabling the abuse that my scapegoat uncle got in that family
Yeah.
system.
So I want to move it into a little bit of like what you do with clients who you help. But first, a question that comes to mind is, what do you think it is that causes a human to be susceptible to this shaming? Like, what is it? Shame is not innate. We're not born feeling ashamed. We have to be shamed to feel
I don't
ashamed.
believe so. It's a cultural conditioning. We're conditioned to experience shame. It's absolutely everywhere. We're shamed by our parents. This is how they
Right.
control us. So we're taught that shame is the way to be a good person. You have to experience shame. Even like I said, the language.
We want
You
to
have
be a
no shame.
person.
We want to be a good person. You have no
Mhm.
shame.
Yeah.
You're shameless. You're shameful. So
Oh,
these are very very visceral examples of how shame is weaponized. And
yeah.
English
Like
is
if
one of the
you,
languages where that's very, very clear.
yeah. I mean, after speaking with you, yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's shift into I don't know how much you typically share about like your process or what the journey that a client goes on with you looks like.
Well, yeah, I mean, I help people really disconnect from that narcissistic shame voice that they've
Mm.
internalized, and then, like I say, you become free. If anyone tries to shame you, you just recognize that as a projection. So, I mean, I have a system, an acronym, and obviously, when I go through it with people, I really work on their individual shame triggers and everything. But it's called BREAK, BREAK. So the first
Okay.
one is B. It's break the trance, and this is important. You've got to recognize that this isn't your voice. It's a spell, it's a pattern, it's a trance that we're all collectively under. And when
Yeah.
you catch it and interrupt it and you name it, and you
You got to be
recognize it,
aware of it
yeah, you've got
first.
to be aware of it, and you've got to
Yeah.
recognize that shame is never useful. That's the key thing, because we're taught that shame is useful. It makes you better culture. It makes you good. It makes you work harder. It makes you the hustle culture. Again, it's all about shaming. You've got to shame yourself in order to be work harder. Everything operates through shame. So you've got to recognize that shame is not good. It's never beneficial. It's always a manipulation every single time. So that's it. Catch it, name it. And, if it's a voice in your head, or if it's, that physical body takeover, where you get hot, where you
Hmm.
physically start contracting. If you've ever had a shame attack, it's like nothing else. So
It's
you recognize
awful.
it. Yeah. It's much worse than fear or anything else. It's like a million times worse because
Like when you said that, I went back in time to when that would happen to me, and my body instantly was like, ugh.
yeah, this is the only emotion that's really, it's self-attack, it's self-abuse, it's self-annihilation. When you experience shame, you want to die, you want to
Yeah.
disappear.
Yep.
I don't believe that anyone would commit suicide were it not for shame.
Yeah.
Shame, that inner narcissist saying, you might as well not be here. No matter how bad things get in your life, you need that in order to take that, final action. In
Hmm.
order to want to disappear, you
Yep. Yep.
need, otherwise you're going to find a way. You're going to be,
Yeah. There's
so
solutions, there's
there,
options. There's
yeah, no matter how bad things get, the shame voice, this internalized narcissist is an essential element of that. And I believe that's what drives addiction. John Bradshaw said all that, and Gabor Mate talks about that. But again, all of these people, they talk about shame as normal and it's healthy. There's a healthy form, which
Mm,
I totally disagree with. So
yeah.
that's B,
Hmm.
recognize it for what it is, and that disrupts it. Then you have R, that's refuse to engage. So this is different than what we're taught in the conventional wisdom. You've got to drop the rope. You've got to stop explaining, taking this thing to therapy. You don't argue with a trans, do you? You don't, like Dr. Ramani, who's the expert in narcissists out there. She says, deep, don't defend, don't explain, don't engage, and don't personalize. And this is what we've got to do with that inner narcissist voice when it says you're a failure, you're ugly, whatever,
Hmm.
whatever, or if it's just that feeling. Don't try to explain it. Everything that you do to try to perform for it or try to defend yourself against it, it's just giving it narcissistic supply. And you could see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's narcissistic supply, and then it metastasizes in something very malignant, where it's like telling you that you might as well be dead. That's happened to me. So I'm
Yeah.
speaking from personal experience there. You drop the rope and it has nothing. You have all the power here. So this is the cool thing. Just like with the narcissists out in the world, you have all the power. They're
Hmm.
parasites. They
Yep.
extract from you because they're empty shells. So that's R, refuse to engage. Then you go to E, which is expose the lie. So that means you call out the shame-based programming, like whatever it is, you're a failure, you're ugly. Recognize that that's not an empirical truth. This is
Hmm.
all about control. It's not trying to keep you safe. It's not trying to look after you. And this is what the conventional wisdom said. This inner critic is trying to keep you safe. It's complete BS. It's trying to keep itself safe, just like the narcissist that punches you in the face and kicks you in the balls and then tells you they're doing it to keep you safe. It's absolute, it's gaslighting 101. Recognize that this is control, and that automatically disarms its power. And then you've got to anchor your truth in the body, come back to your body, because shame and this inner narcissist, it hijacks your body like nothing else. So you've got to come back to your body, feel your breath, plant your feet, say your name, the year, and really remind your nervous system that you're safe, that you're sovereign, and that you're here. And then finally, K is kick it out. That means shake it out, stomp it out, physically, shake your arms, do whatever you need to do, physically get it out of your body, because it does hijack your body like nothing else. Recognize that it's not yours. This is inherited, this is passed down, and you do not have to take it in. That is a choice. It's always an unconscious choice. But
Hmm.
when you start recognizing that, you can say no to it. Not today, bitch. This is not mine.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. So I'm assuming when you are working with clients, you come up against their own internal, oh my gosh, but I'm so trauma bonded. Oh my gosh, but this is so hard. Like I really believe this about myself. I've had all these proofs that show me. How do you How do you navigate those kinds of situations or objections or pushback?
Well, yeah, I mean, the really key thing is to get people to recognize that shame is a mechanism of control. Like if that's one thing that people get from this conversation, that's very powerful to know that. But we are trauma bonded to shame. So as a society, we've been taught that it's good for you. We live in a culture that's addicted to shame. So it's an addiction. It's like a drug. We're like, oh, I need my little dose of shame in order to feel
Yeah.
not good enough, in order to feel like I'm a good person. And it's basically dosing ourselves, injecting poison into yourself, and we're told that it's good for you. So this is the huge, so really recognizing that for what it is. And then what I do when I work with people in groups, I go back to their where they were taught the shame, or where they took it on, and help them to release it energetically from their body and somatically. Because we know lots of people who've been talking about shame for years and years, or maybe they've been talking around shame for years and haven't mentioned the shame. Because, like I said, shame is a dirty four-letter word in our
Hmm.
society. Nobody wants to touch it. Um, but but if I want to let go of something, I have to pick it up and recognize this is the root of all my. I mean, I hate. I don't. I. It's so many of our problems. I don't want to say all of our problems, but the vast majority of our problems can be attributed to shame. Even on some level, I don't believe there are many problems that we have, especially like mental health issues,
Hmm.
that can't that have no that aren't born some in some means by shame and suicide, and you know all kinds of addiction, sex addiction. These are all just ways that we numb the shame.
Yeah.
Because when we drink or we shoot up, we get with like we put the pause on the shame for that time. So
Yep.
we feel a little bit better, but then obviously it comes back, and then we spiral, or we shame ourselves from having taken the drug or whatever. So it spirals out of control. So I work with people to really break up that trauma bond that they've built with shame, and really taking them back. I work a lot with do a lot of inner child work
Hmm.
with their child parts that were taught that shame is good for them. This is the way to be a good girl. And really showing those parts they don't need shame anymore to be a good person, and showing them another way of doing that.
I love the work you are doing. I know that this is going to be so valuable for so many people to hear, and that brings me such joy. And I'm humbled that you came on to share this because everything that you're saying, I can already tell like this is revolutionary. This
It
is
is revolutionary because shame is glorified in our society.
apparently.
Uh, it is. Look, a shame drenched,
Hmm.
narcissistic culture that provides the perfect substrate for
Yeah.
narcissism to develop.
Yeah.
And, it's a protection. What's the driver of narcissism? Shame.
Yeah. Yeah, and in working with my clients, we go through a lot because I started out working in eating disorders. So when you said bulimia, I was like, yup. And it kind
Yeah.
of shifted from there into like, there's something beneath the eating disorder, right? Like we're having these group calls, we're having these chats. There's something more under here. Let's kind of dig into that. And I ended up working with women who just feel like everything is too much and everything is just so emotionally overwhelming, right? And so
Yeah.
we touch on a lot of this shame piece, and I do share like guilt can absolutely serve a purpose, but shame does nothing to help you. It causes you to feel like you're hopeless, you're helpless, you're small, you're insignificant, like no. And so everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, this is incredible. But I've never heard someone dig into shame itself in this way and be this passionate about it.
Nobody else is talking about this that I know of.
Yeah. Yeah. This
And
needs to be heard.
also the systemic nature of shame. There are people who talk about it within the family system, but they don't talk about how we've internalized this narcissistic
Hmm.
voice. They still talk about the inner critic and being some kind of protector. Um, and that's very dangerous, because when you feel like something is a wounded part, you take it to therapy and you send it love. Imagine if you have a parasite in your digestive system, which
Yeah.
is what the narcissist is. It's a parasite. You don't just send it love and, wish it well. Take your medicine and get that thing out. And that's
Hmm.
what we can do with this inner narcissist. We don't owe it anything. We don't, and we're taught to be polite to the thing. You don't need to be polite to that thing. You don't owe it
Yeah.
anything. It's trying to
Yeah.
kill you, literally.
Yeah. So is there anything that you would like to share with this particular audience that we haven't covered? Maybe I didn't ask a question about it, but you want to share.
Well, I think we've covered most things.
Yeah.
But I mean, the real key you got to recognize is that shame is no good, and our society says shame is good for you. It's a lie. We're told that this inner critic is your carer. It's not. It's a narcissist, and I believe that everyone we've internalized that on some level. Even
Hmm.
people, narcissists, they've internalized that shame voice and repressed it. So it's just a matter of degrees to which people are aware of it and degrees to
Hmm.
which they're aware that it's affecting their life. But people who have, eating disorders or, have self-loathing, that is shame. Shame is the root cause of so many things. So stop trying to, or even imposter syndrome, perfectionism, all of that, that's shame.
All of that.
That's shame. Go to the source. Stop dealing with the symptoms and deal with the root cause. That's the only way to get free.
Yeah. And I think it's good to clarify here too. You shared that you do speak to the inner child experience. You do meet them where they were then and where this took root. And so it's good that we clarified here, like the inner critic, that's not your inner child. That's
Exactly.
your child and you've carried
Yeah,
it with you. Yeah.
exactly. And it's not your higher self or your
Yeah.
intuition or people are like, I've heard people asking spiritual teachers, how do I know if this is my inner critic or if it's my higher guidance or whatever? And the spiritual leader has come up with this long, convoluted response. But actually, it's very simple. Is this voice shaming? If it's
Yeah.
shaming you, it's not your
Does
intuition.
it
It's
make you
not
feel
your
like
higher
shit?
guidance.
Get it?
Does it tell you you're useless and that you can't do anything? Your guidance, your God, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Your higher wisdom, your higher self will never shame you. So recognize that your higher self will not shame you, and your inner narcissist will. It's a different part, like you said. It's not the wounded child. But
Yeah.
these two things have been conflated in our society, and you have therapists telling people to send love to this thing and take it to therapy, and it's just very dangerous. Imagine them telling people it's like take your narcissist to therapy.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for disaster. And this is the thing that really shocked me when I started to uncover this and the
Yeah.
difference in approaches that
I
people are
haven't
told
heard
to
that
do.
people are telling them things like that. Like, I'm so glad you did that research to be able to share that here so that when people listen and hear that, that now in the future they'll keep that with them. And if someone does tell them something like that, maybe they'll remember this and say like, no.
Yeah, the inner narcissist, this so-called inner critic, it's not a wounded part. It's not your child. It's
Yeah.
not it's not something that you can heal,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because it's a parasite and it's not who you are. You can cut it off because it's extracting all its power from you. So you have all the power in the relationship, really. But it's been gaslighting you and triangulating you and manipulating you for so long that
Holding you
you
back.
think it's been holding you back. And then, like I've shared, the conventional wisdom has been telling you that this is a wounded part, that this is a protector, that it's trying to keep you safe, that if you're self-sabotaging, this thing is just looking out for you. It's like a covert narcissistic mother,
Yeah.
it's not about you, it's protecting itself.
Yeah.
And really recognizing that really allows you to stop coddling this thing. And
Yeah.
we're taught to coddle this thing, and that just feeds us.
Yeah. Well, hearing that we're taught to coddle it is it became shocking to me. I was like, holy shit. Because, I believe similarly to what you believe. And so even that concept to me is like, what? So I'm very grateful for this conversation. We didn't even get into any of your personal history and growing up with a narcissistic household or anything. But if you feel comfortable with what we've shared thus far, I would love to let the audience know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me. I'm the founder of the Trauma Matrix, so you can find me over on Substack, traumamatrix.substack.com, and also on the socials, trauma.matrix. So you can find me there. And I also have a free gift for you guys. It's called 5 Signs It's Time to Break Up with Your Inner Narcissist. So if you've been listening to this and you think, I may have that going on, and we all do, it's just a matter to how much of a priority is it for you to do something about it? This is your next step. And this is a guide that really gives you the 5 classic signs that you need to break up with this thing. And it also teaches you how to make that happen. So you can find that at tinyurl.com/not today narc, not today NARC.
I love that. I love that people are going to have something to immediately take away from this. They're going to learn from this. And I love that people are going to be able to find you and come chat with you and follow along for the ride, because I know that you have a lot more to share with people and help that you can offer if needed.
Yeah. So if you recognize yourself in this, if you feel like shame has been the driver, and I believe it's been the driver for so many of us have been scapegoated. And like I say, it's the root cause of so many problems that we experience. We've been taught to think imposter syndrome, perfectionism, self-sabotage, procrastination is the problem, but all these things are symptoms of shame. So when we deal with the root, that really is the way to very quickly take back your power, and in a very revolutionary way that most people don't do. Most people are just, moving around the furniture when it comes to shame, because we're taught that it's something that's good for you or healthy, when really it represses and suppresses all your power.
Yeah. And we keep looking for help from the very people who are continuing.
Exactly. They shame you more because it
Yeah.
keeps you in the spiral. So when they teach you how to cope with shame, you need to come back for more and more, because rather than kicking the thing out, you keep needing help, because shame is inherently poisonous.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Emma, I think that this has been a wonderful show. I think we're cutting it shorter than I normally do. No, not too bad. So I just want to say to the listeners, like, thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing this conversation. I know I learned a lot, and I hope you guys did too. And I did not do an official intro in the beginning. I like to just jump right into it, but I just want to share Emma's name here again, Emma Lyons. And she has shared her website. Her information will be in the show notes, where you can go and click to follow her and to see what she offers. So thank you very much for being here, Emma. And I hope you had as much fun as I did. This has been great.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. Lovely to
You
meet you,
too.
Shanna. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time in the Reclamation Room. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if this supported you, consider sharing it or leaving a review. You're not alone, and your reclamation is sacred.